All right, everyone, welcome to a new edition of Human Conversations. I'm Jessica Lockhart, and I'm really thrilled to have you here on board with us live on YouTube. And I'm really thrilled because I have two incredible guests today. Two people who are for sure going to share incredible information with you, information that I'm sure will be helpful, inspiring, and eye-opening. So today we're going to be talking about something called social pressure. As you know, at the International Institute of Humanology, we focus on a human topic every month. And the topic for this month of July is stepping down the ladder or getting off the hamster wheel. And we decided that today would be a fantastic day to talk about getting off the hamster wheel of social pressure. That's why we had the pleasure to invite two fantastic speakers that I'm going to ask to join me now on screen. There they are, and that I am going to be introducing right away because I don't want to take any time from our time for the discussion. The first speaker tonight is going to be Megan J. McRory, who is the head coach and founder of My Best Self Coaching and Community. She says that they are dedicated to supporting people's personal development and self-improvement journey by helping them determine the best goals to set and the right plan to succeed in becoming their best selves. So we will have Megan as the first speaker today, after which we will have the pleasure of listening to Mr. Robert Hernandez, Dr. Robert Hernandez, to be more precise, who is a Jungian-oriented licensed psychologist with a focus on developing ego, self-access related leadership. He's got over 15 years of experience. He's an international keynote speaker, Galician, Cuban, American soul carried within a farmer's heart. So these are going to be the two speakers that will accompany me tonight on this human conversation on how to handle social pressure. And without further ado, I will invite Megan to use her 15 minutes right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be joining you today for this inspiring YouTube live event. Thank you, Jessica, for having me on the panel today. I am happy to be here to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is goal setting, and specifically how social pressure impacts that. So I'm going to cover how social pressure impacts your everyday choices and how positive and negative social pressure affect your goal setting. First, let's take a look at a little scenario where social pressure can influence us. So imagine this scene. It's a lazy Sunday afternoon, and you're scrolling on the internet. Automagically, you stumble upon the latest kitchen gadget that promises to revolutionize your kitchen and cooking experience. It's endorsed by your favorite celebrity chef and by your best friend. So you can hear the whispers of social pressure urging you to click that and button that says buy now. Everyone else is raving about this, and you don't want to be left behind, right? Social pressure has a very sneaky way of seeping into our everyday choices, from the mundane to the very significant. It's not just about kitchen gadgets. It can influence when and who we marry, whether or not we start a family, and where we live. And these are some pretty significant life choices that can be influenced by social pressure. Now we find ourselves caught in a little web of expectation, comparison, and FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's kind of like a little silent chorus of voices telling us what we should or shouldn't do, and what we should aspire to, and even how we should define success. But here's the thing, social pressure isn't always a bad thing. In fact, it can provide motivation and expose us to new ideas. So when channeled positively, social pressure can actually push us to set ambitious goals, step out of our comfort zones, and strive for personal growth. It's that friendly nudge from a supportive friend who encourages you to take that leap of faith and start your own business, or the inspiring stories of successful individuals who make you believe that anything is possible. But there's always a but. We must tread carefully because social pressure can also have a dark side. It can lead us down some paths that are not aligned with our true values and aspirations. And it's when we find ourselves setting goals solely to meet others' expectations or to prove something to the world. We may end up chasing someone else's definition of success, only to realize too late that it leaves us feeling very empty and unfulfilled. It's crucial, really, to recognize when social pressure is influencing our choices, whether it's positively or negatively, and how it then serves our own unique goals. So when I start working with someone and they talk about goals using the should word, as I should lose weight or I should read more, I gently challenge them on the purpose for that goal, because should goals are typically fueled by social pressure. And perhaps the should goal is something that aligns with their values, but I find that many people haven't taken the time to consider, reflect, and decide what their values are. And without clear view on your values, how can you decide which goal to pursue? So let's take a look at the positive aspects of social pressure on goal setting. So social pressure can motivate us to consider new ideas for goals. For example, if we're seeing our peers achieving success by pursuing certain goals, we may be motivated to set similar goals for ourselves. And this can expose us to new opportunities and help us expand our horizons. All good things. Social pressure can impact your motivation and your ability to generate new ideas by providing you a sense of accountability and by creating a sense of community with shared purpose. So when we feel accountable to others for achieving our goals, we may be more motivated to follow through. Additionally, when we are part of a community that values certain goals or ideas, we may feel more inspired and motivated to pursue them ourselves. Now, positive social pressure is like having your own personal cheerleading squad. They encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and aim for the stars when you're setting your goals. You know, those awesome friends who always have your back and believe in your potential? Well, they are the ones who can make a real difference in your life. They're going to give you that gentle push. They're going to remind you of your strengths and inspire you to go beyond what you think you're maybe capable of. So imagine you are surrounded by a community of like-minded individuals who are all on their own journey of growth, and they share their stories of accomplishments. You really can't help but being inspired. It's like witnessing the incredible things that others have achieved really makes you believe that you can do it too. So you start saying, hey, if these guys can do it, why not me? The positive influences create an environment where you feel supported, encouraged to take risks. They urge you to embrace new challenges and set your goals that stretch your limits. And that's exciting because you're doing more than what you thought you could do. And with their belief in you, you become motivated to aim higher, to dream bigger, and together with your cheerleading squad, you can accomplish some really great things. So surrounding yourself with those who lift you up and let positive social pressure help push you towards your goals. But as I mentioned, there's always the dark side. So let's talk about the dangers of negative social pressure on goal setting. So negative social pressure can be a very sneaky culprit when it comes to derailing our goal alignment with our personal values. It often manifests in a subtle way, making it essential for us to be vigilant and aware of its presence. And one of the key indicators of negative social pressure is when external expectations and opinions start overshadowing our own authentic desires and values. To identify negative social pressure, it's important to pay attention to how certain influences make us feel. Do we feel pressured to conform or meet expectations of others? Are we setting goals because we think we should, rather than because they align with our genuine aspirations? So recognizing these warning signs allows us to take a step back, reevaluate and realign our goals with our personal values. And there's obviously going to be some risks of setting goals solely based on negative social pressure. And that happens when we succumb to negative social pressure. We might find ourselves setting goals that we don't truly resonate with or who we are at our core. And we may chase achievements that are driven by our need for approval or validation from others, rather than pursuing something that is genuine to us. So as a result, we can end up feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, dissatisfied with our accomplishments, which is not great, right? So negative social pressure can lead to that misalignment between our goals and personal values. And when we prioritize the opinions and expectations of others over our own beliefs, we then start to compromise our own authenticity. So our values act as a compass, guiding us towards what truly matters. However, when negative social pressure seeps in, we may find ourselves compromising those values, leading to this internal conflict and a sense of dissonance. There are a few strategies for mitigating negative social pressure, or at least the effects. And we can do that by prioritizing our own values and desires. When we do that, we create a solid foundation for goal setting that reflects our true selves. So then we can regain that sense of authenticity and ensure that our aspirations are driven by our inner compass. And this alignment then fosters that greater sense of purpose and fulfillment, enabling you to pursue goals that bring you genuine joy and meaning to our lives. So remember, we are all captains of our own ship. So by identifying and resisting negative social pressure, and by embracing positive social pressure, you empower yourself to set goals that align with your personal values, allowing you to chart a beautiful course towards a more authentic and fulfilling life. So trust your instincts, honor your values, and let your goals be a reflection of your true self. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. Very clear presentation. I fully agree with everything you said. I will be building on that later on when I get my chance to speak too. I would like now to invite Robert to take the floor, Dr. Hernandez, who will be approaching the same subject from a different perspective. Let's see what Robert has to say.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And my approach is, you're going to hear a couple of similar things that Megan said, and I really love how she said the core, as far as aligning with your core. And that's something that I'm going to go a little bit deeper in. My approach is a Jungian approach, which is the psychology under Carl Jung, or analytical psychology. And in my approach to leadership development, we look at, is there an alignment, and I'm going to use that word again that Megan used, alignment of oneself, or what we think we are, and our self, according to Carl Jung, which is that part of ourselves that is authentic, that part of ourselves that does know what we value and even where we should go. So there's that part of who we are inside of ourselves. And in older cultures, like in the Greek cultures, Roman and other cultures, the East and in African cultures, people relied on a sense of knowing who they are. And I think in our modern world, a lot of the times that's been not lost maybe totally, but it's definitely kind of gone down a little bit. And so this has a lot to do with how we react to social pressure. So for example, I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you know you're at risk from giving into social pressure, what to do about that, and what would be the result. So that's going to be my approach here with how do you handle social pressure. So again, building on this idea that we all truly know within ourselves what we should do, how we should decide, how should we respond to external forces, also known as social pressure. And that could be one person, a group of people, an event that would also pressure us into being a certain way, acting a certain way, feeling a certain way, choosing to do things. So a way that we would know if we're even at risk for that, or even how to test our ability to handle social pressure accordingly, I would say the first thing is you want to know, do I seek validation and acceptance from external sources? So when you have to make a really difficult decision, are you pushed to, calling your mother or your spouse or significant other, or calling your close friend and giving them the scoop so that they tell you what to do? Is that where you're coming from? Also, do you have a deep sense of longing to belong to something? Or are you afraid of being alone? Is there a fear of isolation? Do you find the idea of going out to dinner by yourself just unbearable? Would that be something that you would be doing or fearing to do? Also, do you prioritize others' opinions of what they think you should do over your own, which Megan also talks about, which is, it's important? And do you have a sense of emptiness, or like this hole that you're trying to fill? And because you have maybe a lack of fulfillment in your life, is that something where you are at? Or do you conform to others' ideologies without even questioning or challenging it, or even afraid to challenge others' beliefs and ideologies? And does all of that kind of push down where you are or who you are? And if you answered yes to any of those, that can put you at risk of not handling well social pressure. So that's something you want to take a look at. And in my work with leaders, one of the things that leaders tend to have a lot of pressure is with the board. In my work with CEOs and any C-suite executive, they have to usually answer to the board. So there's a lot of pressure from the board of how they are to act and where they are to act. And sometimes they forget they're even a C-suite executive. They just kind of think that they're there to serve the board. So that's something that I deal with constantly. So then if you do answer some of that and you find yourself you're at risk, what do you do about it? And these are just some of the things that could be helpful for you to take a look at. The first thing you definitely want to do is try to go down an increased self-awareness. You want to increase what I call introspection. And introspection is basically giving yourself that space to get to know yourself better. And that's going to lead to self-reflection, because once you give yourself the space to kind of, think about things and observe yourself and how you act, and then you're going to get some insight and some ideas, and that's going to help you to self-reflect. That's also going to increase your self-awareness. And then by doing that, you get to explore and you start to understand your own values, your passions, your unique qualities, and you get to know you, like who you are. A lot of the times we're born into this world and we get to look at our caregiver looking down at us. And that's kind of the first time that we're like, okay, there's someone else out there and I'm having a relationship with them. And as we continue growing up, we start to discover who we are, what we like, what we don't like, some of the foods we hate that we're forced to eat, things like that. And little by little, through time, you get to know yourself better. And this is kind of what we're talking about. But along the lines, people tend to not make that space to get to know themselves. They get to fill their time with many things, and then they don't have a relationship with themselves or the self that Jung talks about. And then, of course, another thing that could be great to help is to increase your own emotional intelligence. And this would come in the form of being aware of the emotions that arise And what do those emotions tell you? I mean, emotions are messages, and they're there to be like an inner compass. So I'm using kind of some of the words that Megan is using because I think they're important and to kind of keep and reflect on. Then as we understand, okay, I'm being triggered, or this is affecting me because I'm feeling the pressure. You won't even know that if you don't have an awareness of yourself and the emotions that arise, right? And so it's important to kind of know that you're feeling that pressure. And then once you do feel the pressure, you have to know that you have to make a space. And you have to maybe give yourself a moment to decide, should I succumb to the pressure or should I not? And social pressure is neither good nor bad. The results of it could be good or bad. And that's something that we have to get to. Is this pressure that I'm sensing a good thing? Or is this pressure I'm sensing a bad thing? I mean, when we are pressured to study more because we want to do well on an exam, that's a good thing, right? But when that same exam is the next day and we're pressured to go out and party, that's probably going to lead to bad things. At least we won't probably do well on that exam. So it's really about questioning the pressure as it comes and understanding that we're feeling pressured. And then finally, at the end, the results of that is to have an alignment with yourself, because as long as you know what you're feeling, what's important to you, where should I go with this, then you won't succumb so easily to the pressure. And I think we bring this negative connotation to social pressure when it's not aligned with who we are, whether it's good or bad. So even if the social pressure has good results, it might not be aligned with who you are. And that's not a good thing, because then you won't come across as authentic and you won't be living authentically. And it's just not going to feel good. And so it really is so important to be aligned. And so that when you are with someone or a group of people, or even if there's an external situation that's pressuring you, for example, we're dealing with this crisis and war going on with Ukraine. And now that I'm living in Europe, I'm actually closer to Ukraine. So how do I let that pressure me? Do I let it dictate how I'm going to feel today because of what's going on and what I'm hearing in the news? So these are all some things that we have to really kind of go down, go deep, and reconnect with who we are so that we can manage that pressure accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert, for your contribution to this panel. I think that both Megan and you are quite aligned in your presentations, and I think those two presentations will be quite aligned with the one I'm going to be presenting now. Thank you so much. Let's now move on to my presentation. For those of you who just connected right now, I am Jessica Lockhart. I am the director of the International Institute of Humanology, the creator of the discipline called Humanology. I'm an author and an international speaker, among other things. And today I'm going to be speaking from the point of view of humanology on how to deal with social pressure. I did prepare a little presentation that I'm going to be sharing with you right now, if I can get the screen to work properly, and I can show it to you. Let me just try and share the screen. There we go. Okay, so we're talking about how to deal with social pressure. And I'm going to be mentioning some of the things that both Robert and Megan mentioned before, but I will try and expand those things into a more humanological approach. So the first thing that I would like to say is that social pressure exists because we're all social beings living in groups. We all have the need to somehow feel that we fit in, that we belong. That's a human need. And sometimes that need is built on by others that might use it for our advantage or disadvantage. According to the American Psychological Association, social pressure is the exertion of influence on a person or group by another person or group. And as both Megan and Robert said, social pressure in itself is neither good nor bad. Social pressure can be negative when it hurts you, when it makes you feel bad, when it causes negative emotions or negative feelings in you, or even leads you into paths that you don't want to follow, but you feel pressured to do so. But, as both also mentioned, social pressure can be positive because it can, for example, motivate you into doing things that you might otherwise not even consider or even think about. So when we talk about negative social pressure, we might encounter situations in which we might value that social pressure more than our own opinions and beliefs. We might consider that what others are trying to impose on us is more important than what we believe or what we think, as Robert just so very clearly explained. That negative social pressure is also damaging when we allow it to guide our decisions, as Megan also explained. If we let the social pressure be our guide, forgetting what we really feel, what we really think, what we really want, then it could have a negative impact upon us. And something very important to highlight too is that the negative impact of social pressure could result in us having lower self-esteem, because whenever we put our value in the hands of others and we stop valuing ourselves through our own analysis, our own understanding, then we might start undervaluing ourselves. One of the problems in acute cases of negative social pressure is when people enter what we call the hamster wheel, this thought wheel, in which people get completely overwhelmed by thoughts having to do with the social pressure they're subject to. They can't stop thinking about what they're asked to do or whom they're asked to be. They want to fit in so badly. They might do things they don't really want to do, and their whole life evolves around the idea of social fitting in or social conformity. We have seen an increase of this hamster wheel, especially among very young people lately, in these last decades, I would say. And being in that mental hamster wheel can have very, very negative effects on human beings. Because whenever we are inside one of these wheels, we run and run and run and run and move and move and move and think and think and think and do nothing else. And we sometimes find it really hard to get off the hamster wheel. We find it really difficult to step down because we're just carried away. And funnily enough, whenever we step into one of these hamster wheels and we get overwhelmed by our own thinking processes, having to conform with what others think about us, then we kind of gain speed and the wheel goes faster and faster and faster, making it harder for us to leave or to step down. So sometimes social pressure can make us doubt and question our beliefs. We are immersed in what others think about us, in what others want from us, in what the world out there is expecting us to do or to be. And of course, I'm talking about very negative social pressure. So whenever that happens, we might doubt ourselves, and we might doubt ourselves so badly that it could result in serious, severe problems for us. So the first thing we need to do under those circumstances is to step off the hamster wheel of our thoughts. We have to be able to stop that line of thinking. We have to be able to kind of push the brakes and say, wait a minute, slow down. I don't want to be here the whole day. I don't want to devote my whole thinking process to becoming the person others want me to become, or to doing what others want me to do, or to whatever it is that we feel pressure to do or to think or to say. So sometimes people don't know how to get off that hamster wheel. It is usually very easy to get onto the wheel. You know, we start doing things not really being that aware that we're doing them. And suddenly one day we catch ourselves just running around in that wheel and we tell ourselves, what happened? What am I doing here? We sometimes discover the wheel when others tell us we're in the wheel. And the first thing I want you to do today, if you're listening to me right now, is ask yourself, are you inside any of those wheels? Are you inside a mental wheel, that is a wheel in which you can't stop thinking about something? Are you perhaps in a professional wheel where you have to continue running and running and running to reach goal after goal after goal, or maybe become the person that your bosses, your company, whomever wants you to become? Always one step further, one step further. Are you perhaps even in a physical hamster wheel, in the sense that you are, I don't know, practicing some kind of sport and you always want to be better, faster, stronger, and you can't stop? These hamster wheels are really, really damaging whenever they control us instead of us controlling them. Which is why I would like to give you just a few very quick ideas on how to step off the wheel. The first thing that I want to suggest is that you use a tool that in humanology we call the mental switch. This is a tool that I developed after Walking on Fire with Tony Robbins, and is based on one of his teachings. It has to do with the idea that the human brain is quite dumb. The human brain can only focus on one thought at the same time. It can focus on two simultaneously. It can go from one to the next very quickly, but it can only focus on one. So the idea is, if you're focused on the thoughts that you usually have on that mental wheel, you're not going to be able to think about anything else. So the first exercise is to create a distraction for your brain so you can focus on another thought. Maybe, I don't know, let's imagine that the social pressure you're subject to is what I said, the businessman who has to climb the ladder step after step after step, and he has to be the best at everything he does, and he has to work 15 hours a day to, and is always obsessed by his work because he feels like he's not going to be able to comply with what the other people want from him unless he is totally immersed in that wheel. So imagine that he decides, okay, I'm going to stop the wheel. But of course, his thinking habit is to go back to the wheel, go back to the wheel. So the idea is to focus on something else. You have to choose, and this you have to do it willingly, you have to choose a completely different thought, a completely different thinking process that will distract your mind from the thoughts that you usually have on your wheel. Imagine you say, okay, I'm going to focus on the last movie I watched. As simple as that. And whenever you feel like you're trapped in your hamster wheel and you want to get off the wheel, at least even for a short while, you're going to go back to that movie and you're going to focus on every single detail you can remember of that movie. Who were the main characters? What actors were interpreting or performing them? What was the movie about? Where was it shot? Whatever you can think of about the movie. That will create a gap in your thinking process that will somehow stop the wheel for a few instants so you can step down. All right? That's a very simple exercise. You can use it to really stop the wheel for a moment and step down. The second one is visualization. I want you to visualize yourself in a positive situation. Whenever we're in these hamster wheels of thoughts, we're usually thinking negative, damaging, hurtful thoughts or worrying thoughts. We're not usually running the hamster wheel on happy thoughts and joyful thoughts and how fantastic I am thoughts, right? So what I want you to do is choose one goal that you have that might be, for example, worrying you because you have to achieve that goal by a certain date. And I want you to visualize yourself achieving it and being successful. So it's focusing on visualizing that moment in your mind with as much detail as you can. What are you wearing? Where are you standing or sitting? Are you with anybody else? I want you to use mindfulness in this process. I want you to really, really, really imagine that moment in which you're succeeding and you're doing it great. That will also help you step off the ladder. And last but not least, I want you to create little time boxes. I want you to allocate a small period of time every day to getting out of the wheel. It could be 1 minute, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. And I want you to actually do something else for that period of time every day, every week, as often as you plan it. And in that time, for example, I don't know, you might want to listen to some jokes. You could prepare a list of websites where jokes are told, and you could just connect for 1 minute, 3 minutes, half an hour to listen to jokes, which will also help you disconnect from the wheel, get off the wheel, and stop spinning the wheel. Okay, so now you're out of the wheel. You're not thinking about what you were thinking about, what you've been thinking about for the last 15 years. You're out of the wheel. Now it's the right time to deal with the pressure. You feel all this social pressure on you, and we're talking about negative social pressure, okay? So what can you do? How can you deal with it? Well, both Megan and Robert said that social pressure could be positive and could be negative. So what I would just like to suggest is that you flip that social pressure. You just flip it. You take the negativity and turn it into positivity. You take all those negative effects of the social pressure and find the positive aspect of each of them. For example, we said before that people might be questioning your opinions and your beliefs. Well, maybe, their questions, their doubts, their comments could inspire you to considering other options. Maybe you could take the negative comments and turn them into something that could teach you something about yourself. Okay, I'm being told this and that, and they expect me to be this and that. What can this tell me? Is this something that I really want for myself? Is this something that could benefit me? Is this something that I would like to try? Maybe, you could turn those negative actions into some positive ones. You could also consider that all those negative actions by others could give you different perspectives that you could value, that you could consider, that you could maybe think about. It could, like that, open new avenues for yourself. And funnily enough, the negative social pressure that was somehow lowering your self-esteem could also be flipped, and it could also reinforce your self-esteem, because you could take it as, okay, so I'm being told that I do this wrong, that I should be doing this differently, that I should not be doing this or that or whatever. But that means that I am doing this and that, You look for the positives. You look for the things that you're actually doing properly, and the things that people are criticizing you for, maybe you could consider whether they're criticizing you or maybe they're attacking you because they cannot criticize themselves. So flip the negative social pressure and turn it into positive. There's certain specifics and certain special kinds of pressures that people exercise on us that are sometimes hard to bear. For example, negative judgment. When we feel judged by others and the judgment is negative, it can somehow hurt us. So turning or flipping that negative judgment into something positive, we could say, okay, so this person's judging me in the negative. How can I make it positive? This person's telling me, for example, that I'm not good at my job, that I do things, very slowly, and that I should be faster at doing things. So, well, maybe in that case, I could focus on what is my judgment of myself. Am I really slow? If that is like that, could I be faster? How would I be faster? What do I need to learn? What do I need to acquire in order to be faster? Another very typical negative social pressure is when people try to force us to conform to something. You know, you have to be this way. Like Megan was saying, you should be doing this, you should. So it's that conformity. Again, flip it. Maybe it's something that might help you consider whether you want to be in that social group or not. Sometimes when people push us to conform to something, it is because we just don't fit in. But do we really actually need to fit in? Maybe observing that people are pushing us might be the key to realizing that we don't actually want to be there. And if we do find that we do want to be there and that we don't conform, then that's another great learning lesson, learning curve for ourselves. Another one, and this will be the last one I'll be mentioning now, although there are many, is when people threaten us. You know, they threaten us with, I don't know, abandoning us, or they threaten us with not talking to us anymore, not being our friends anymore, for example, something very, very common, again, among the young. So when people threaten us, once again, we can analyze the threat. We can try and see if there's anything that we can learn from it. And at the same time, we can also use it, as we said in the previous example, to analyze whether we want these people to be in our lives or not. Sometimes the threats are a way of attracting our attention to the fact that we don't want to be with these people. So use all these negative signals as positive signals whenever you want to really handle the negative social pressure. And as we usually say in humanology, sorry about that, as we usually say in humanology, we are here to help people learn how to do things. Humanology is a discipline that tells you the how of things. How, as we just explained now, how to flip it, how to deal with it, how to discover what it is, how to, always the how to. It offers you unique practical tools so that you can use the tools to deal with your own pressure, with your own perceptions, with your own analysis. Because at the end of the day, we're all different human beings. We have different mindsets, different sets of beliefs. We have different backgrounds. We have different growth patterns. We have many different aspects. And that is why we need something that is individual, made just for us. And that's what humanology does. It helps you with the tools that can help you. Maybe those tools are not valid for other people, but they're the right ones for you. And of course, we don't judge. So just be aware that if there is anything that is causing negative feelings, negative impressions, it's hurting you, it's damaging you through negative social pressure, you can turn any negative pressure into positive drive. You just need to know how to do it. This is what I wanted to share with you today on this very short presentation on how to handle social pressure. And I am really happy to be part of this incredible panel that we have today, a panel that I'm going to invite to join me now on the screen again. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Lots of great points, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. So now comes the time in which we're going to be opening the colloquium, the roundtable discussion. And to do so, for those of you who are familiar with human conversations, you know that we have a set of questions that the three panelists will answer, so you can have a very complete answer to your questions. The first question that we have today is, social pressure exists everywhere and in all age groups. What positive value does social pressure have for having survived for so long? I think we somehow answered this question, all of us, but maybe there's something else you would like to add. Megan, would you like to take this on first?
Sure. So actually, when you gave us these questions ahead of time, this was the one that stumped me the most because how do I describe that? And then I sort of got into the fact that, and you mentioned it, we are social creatures. And I think the reason that social pressure has survived so long is because we are human and because we are social creatures. And it is the thing that often propels science. It's the thing that propels the arts. It's the thing that propels a lot of these things that we take as humanity, as ours, as humans. And I don't think if social pressure didn't exist in the forms that it is, whether it's negative or positive, we wouldn't be the society of humans that we are today without that social pressure. So I was glad that I came around to that, but I do want to mention that I was looking up this comic strip. So I'm sure that you guys have both heard the phrase keeping up with the Joneses, which is the best idiom to explain social pressure. And I was like, where did this come from? And this turned out to be a comic strip in the early 20th century. And it was a comic strip of this family who was always doing something to keep up with the Joneses, who was never actually in the comic strip. You never saw this family, so they could be from anywhere. And I think that really epitomizes everything that we've talked about. It's like they could be everywhere and nowhere, and yet this pressure is to keep up with these neighbors in terms of climbing the social ladder or whatever that might mean. So I think that would be what I want to add for this, how it survived for so long.
Thank you, Megan. Robert?
Yeah, and I like to look at it as creating societies or society creation, because in order for societies to succeed and get along and all of that, there has to be a certain amount of social pressure. Even if it's to keep, the laws or the rules of a certain society going, there has to be some pressure built in. And what I think it's interesting, there's always going to be this dichotomy, if you will, between individuals, in other words, how people are connected to who they are authentically, and society and the pressures and the norms that come from society. So you're always going to have both. And you're going to have, I would say, a good amount of people that are just going to follow along without even thinking about anything. And you're going to have those that are going to probably rebel a little bit. They'll question the rules. They'll question, why are we even doing this? And it's funny because moving over to northern Spain, which is where I'm at right now, my partner and I, we kind of are in a way rebelling to some of these local rules and local laws, but at the same time we know that we have to keep them because we're in a new country. This is not where we come from. So out of respect, you do kind of follow the rules, but then from an individual perspective, we're constantly questioning the rules. We're kind of grappling with them and maybe just really kind of in I would say, a little bit of a battle engagement with some of these. And I think all of that is healthy. So I do believe that creating societies requires that pressure, and that's why it's lasted for such a long time. Otherwise, our society probably wouldn't have advanced as it has.
Thank you both, Megan and Robert. Yes, I agree with both of you. If social pressure hadn't existed, would just be isolated individuals, I think, each going our own way. I have had the pleasure of living in 8 different countries so far. So I've had to adapt, learn from many, many different social systems. And the social pressure has sometimes been quite significant, I must say. But as we usually say in humanology, negative is positive, positive is negative. I mean, whatever is very negative for somebody might be extremely positive for somebody else, even if it's the same thing. So I also wanted to say that social pressure can be taken as something damaging, something negative, but it can also be taken as something positive and inspirational in a way. Learning how to live in those different countries taught me how flexible I can be. It also taught me to expand my worldview beyond imagination and to really grow in many different fields that I had never even considered questioning or analyzing at all. So I think that social pressure has a negative connotation, even though we all said that it also has positive values and a positive impact. But to people, social pressure is usually equal to being obliged or forced to doing things. And I think that perhaps it's time to strip social pressure of that negative connotation and, as everything else in life, start giving it a more neutral value. I think that's why it survived so long, because at the end of the day, it also has its positive impact, I think. The next question that we have for our panel is, what can an adult do if they never learned how to handle social pressure? Are they lost cases? Robert, would you like to start?
Well, you should never ask a good psychologist if someone's a lost case, because hopefully we're optimistic people, right? So I would say no, they're not lost cases, but someone is always capable of learning until they're not breathing. So if you're breathing, you can learn. And I think that what someone can do with social pressures is some of the things that we've spoken about, which is really giving yourself that space to know yourself, know who you are, where your values are at, what's important to you, what are your morals. And then when something comes up that is bringing on this pressure because you feel like, I got to comply here, I got to get in line, it allows you that time to reflect and figure out how you're going to handle that. A person that has done the work, the self-introspection, the self-reflection, and all of that, this is an individual then that welcomes the challenge and just doesn't easily give in. Just like I mentioned before, there are many things I don't understand living in northern Spain, but yet eventually I'll choose to give in if I will. Otherwise, I pay the consequences if I don't. But either way, I think the big part of this is I'm not on that hamster wheel that you had mentioned before. I'm actually someone that has thought it out, and I'm making a conscious decision, a decision that really resonates with who I am. And then I make a decision to move forward, whether that's supporting the pressure that's being applied or going against it.
Thank you, Robert. Very interesting. Megan, what's your take on this?
Yes, so I also agree. Nobody's a lost cause. I think everybody can learn at every stage. And when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about like the 3 points in our life that I think social pressure has the biggest impact on us. One being young adulthood, where you're just coming out, you want to be an adult, hashtag adulting, like they want to be an adult, they want to follow in the footsteps of whoever they're modeled after from whatever culture they're coming from. But I think that that's the part where, we know ourselves the least because we're so young and we haven't had the life experiences that we need to have to make those decisions. Yet that's exactly the time when we need to make the decisions about our career, spouses, where we want to live, all these major things. And at least in the US school system, the only kind of social pressure thing we're taught is negative social pressure with doing drugs and alcohol. So it's not like we were taught in, ages ago about our values and how to know ourselves. And I think what happens is, and that's why we have in our late 30s and 40s, the popular midlife crisis, which I'm trying to retwist into a midlife upgrade, because I believe it's not a crisis. It is a revelation of, oh, okay, now I know myself. Now I know my values. And I've had these life experiences that give me the knowledge of myself, knowing myself the better. And unfortunately, a lot of people think, oh, it's just too late. I have a family already, or I don't have a family already, whatever the big life decision is that they made, that they're now thinking, oh, maybe that's not really what I wanted from myself. but there's always a possibility, because you don't need to make huge changes to make huge changes, right? You can make tiny little adjustments to your life that result in amazing things for you in the second half of your life. And then again, when we're nearing our end of years and you start to reflect back at your whole life, now the whole comparison part comes in, right? So now you're comparing yourself to somebody else and what they did and accomplished with their life. And that's, again, this type of social pressure that impacts you, because then you can become depressed and think, well, I have all these regrets. I didn't do the things that that person, look at that person. What did all the stuff they do, So I think every stage of our life, especially those 3 stages, are a really good chance for us to realign, switch the mindset, like you said, turn it into a positive, focus on the things that you did accomplish, and focus on how you accomplish those things in relation to what your values are, right? So I think also every stage in life, everybody can make those adjustments.
Totally. It's funny because I was talking to my younger brother today, and we were talking about something else, but he told me, well, according to science, a person's personality is established by the age of 5, and then it's almost impossible to change. And I told him, well, we're doomed. I'm sorry, I could not agree with that. And I think that neurosciences and the new disciplines are proving that outdated, and that we are really progressing and changing very, very much. We have a coach, a psychologist, and a humanologist here today, and we all agree that that change is positive and possible. But having said that, there's one thing that this question got me thinking, and that is that, well, we are currently understanding the human mind much better than before. And with it, new conditions, new situations have started gaining a better understanding among professionals, such as, for example, autism and the autism spectrum. And people within that spectrum are usually people who have certain limitations in the social field. They might have difficulties bearing social pressure, and they might have difficulties in everything that has to do with social relationships. And they could be adults that never had a chance to learn how to handle social pressure, and as adults within the spectrum were never given the chance to learn because nobody knew how to teach them anything back then because it was too new. So I think that as professionals, we're learning a lot from people like them, because they are currently adults who are facing very difficult life situations as they never learned how to deal with their social environment in an easier way. And I think that we have a lot to learn in that field that would also help other people who are not in the spectrum deal with their social relationships better. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings within or outside the spectrum, but we all need to socialize. And I think that this is going to teach us a lot in the coming years. And I, for one, want to learn. I want to be alert and I want to learn. I also want to say, yes, I will give you the floor right away. 1 second, please. I also want to say that I agree with what Megan just said about crisis. In humanology, we usually explain that crises are a necessary part of human development, because those crises are the times in which we question our belief system. We question many of our beliefs, and we explain that when a person questions one belief, okay, let me rephrase that. When a person has very solid beliefs, the person stands very proud and solid on their beliefs. I know, they're certain. But when they start questioning a belief, they go like, God, maybe that's not exactly like that. And they start showing signs of uncertainty and even insecurity. When too many questions arise, when too many beliefs are being questioned at the same time, that level of insecurity and uncertainty is so big that we can't bear it and we enter a situation of crisis. And that's what happens whenever we go from childhood to adolescence, adolescence to adulthood, and in adulthood we have those crises that might be triggered by, who knows, retirement, for example. It usually makes us question who we are and where we stand. And I think that those crises are fantastic moments to relearn things, or to learn things that we were never taught before. And if you're listening to us, I encourage you, if you feel like you don't know how to handle social pressure, to take on the lessons and to say, okay, now that I'm questioning everything about myself, can I also question how to deal with social pressure? So I would like to invite everybody to really take on their learning hat and give themselves the chance to learn how to improve their social relationship skills. Yes, Megan.
Yeah, I was excited that you brought up the autism spectrum, because I have two people in my life that are, I believe, well, that I know that are on the Asperger end of this scale. And I actually asked one of them about social pressure specifically because of this whole impact on the ability to read social cues and things like that. And this person actually said that they don't feel a lot of social pressure, that and I think that that's also a really interesting, probably a whole nother live event to talk about. And obviously I'm not an expert in this, but I just thought it was fascinating because of both of these people that I know, they tend to feel less embarrassed about things that I would feel embarrassed about. So it's like, it's almost like a superpower in a way, because they can stay true to themselves a bit more than people who are more susceptible to social pressure. And I'm not sure, obviously, if that's the way it goes for all people on the scale. Obviously, everybody's different, but for these two people who are very close to me in my life, I just thought that is just it was eye-opening for me to just even consider it because of this panel. I was thinking about it, and then this brought it up, so I thought I'd mention it.
It's funny, I also have somebody very close to me within the spectrum, and they do feel the social pressure extremely. And they live with people in the spectrum too, and they also feel the pressure incredibly. So I think that once again, we have a lot to learn. We have those who don't feel the pressure versus those who feel it extremely. So it's like people who are not in the spectrum, but what can we learn from these people too? Because their experiences are different. And that's another new field where we, I think, will be learning a lot. Let's move on to the third question. How can we help others handle social pressure, both at work and at home or with friends? So what can we do to help people handle social pressure better? Megan, would you like to take this one on first?
Sure. So I think I would kind of repeat a little bit what I said in my original talk, which is more about awareness, right? And as adults, it still shocks me that there are adults walking around in the world who are completely unaware of themselves. They're unaware of their feelings. They're unaware of the connection between their body and their brain. And so as I think people who are rather in tune with this, the three of us that are sitting here, I think that it's our responsibility to begin to explain to people that there is a connection, that they can know themselves better, that they can recognize this, and to take time and to help people with certain activities or just simple questions to have them start thinking about how to recognize that. I mean, literally a couple hours before this call, I was on a call with another woman who was saying, yeah, my best friend and my psychologist told me I should be doing this. And I'm like, oh, well, you should. I was just like, what a great opportunity to talk about social pressure. And so it's like, that's great. You should, try on things for size, because that's the beautiful part about positive social pressure and people giving you examples of things that might help you. But that goes to a certain point. And then you need to say, okay, that doesn't align with what I'm doing. And therefore, I got it. It's a data point. I'm very data experimental driven. So I feel like everything is a data point. And so, yeah, I think that's really our responsibility as anybody who knows that is just to share and to encourage people to recognize and be aware.
Thank you, Megan. Robert.
Yeah, I think in today's age, we have so much going on. We're always distracted. I always thought, how can anyone with 500 channels on cable television really see so many channels? And then plus now you have Hulu on demand, Netflix on demand, everything's on demand. So do people have a life, or is everyone just binge watching? And with all of this external distraction, I really believe people are not taking the time for that introspection and for increasing self-awareness. So, and just like what you said, Megan, I work with a lot of leaders that we use a feeling chart where you point to the chart to tell you how you're feeling, because they just really are that disconnected. And so I think the first step is really helping people to separate time, just separate the time. Like I liked what you said, Jessica, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, separate that time, and it's your time. And for myself, I can't start my day without that time. Otherwise, I don't think I can function well. I can probably function, but I don't know about well. And so I need that time at the beginning just to be human and just to be able to serve others. And so I really think that in this day and age, it's not valued to separate the time for self-reflection and self-introspection. And besides helping them establish that time, I also think people are in tremendous need to learn to be assertive. And when I say assertive, that, for them to express their limits and express their values and express, this is pressuring me and I don't want to do that. And know how to say that in a way that's still maintaining respect for the other. And so that's another skill that I find myself teaching a lot of leaders at these organizations, because they easily can become aggressive and express what their points are and their values and all of that. But to help them be assertive, which means, you're going to stay connected to you. There's no reason for you to lose it. And just express it in a way that's respectful. And you'll do it in a way that people will then understand there's a limit and they will stop pressuring you. So I believe between separating that time for the self-reflection and introspection, as well as learning to be more assertive and what that word really means, I think would be very helpful when dealing and talking about social pressure.
Yeah, I totally agree, Robert. And it's funny because that reminded me of an anecdote that I sometimes tell that you were somehow involved in. Let me tell you. And one of the pillars of humanology is that we always tell people that humanology aims at first helping them know and understand themselves. Because without that, nothing can be done. I was invited to be one of the speakers at the first happiness festival held in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, a few years ago. Robert, we met there. And I remember that I was asked to speak about happiness, okay? And I was speaking on the second day. I was at a very small place within a big area where they had different little venues for the different speakers. And I remember getting up on that improvised stage. And the first thing I said was, well, thank you for being here, blah, 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 blah. And then I said, unfortunately, the first thing I have to say today is that I've been listening to many of the speakers, both yesterday and today, and I cannot agree with a single one of them. Everybody was like, what? I was like, I'm sorry. But we're here at this happiness festival, and we have experts from all around the world each of them coming with their recipe under their arm, coming here, giving us the recipe, telling us, do this and you'll be happy. And I ask you, I told the audience, who on earth do they think they are to know what makes me happy? And I think that clearly explains what I'm about to say. There are so many channels on TV. We have all these media. We have all these social networks. But we also have all these gurus and all these professionals coming with their recipe, telling us, do this and you'll be happy. Do this and you will be whatever, you know? I said, no way. And that's one of the keys in humanology. No way. First know and understand yourself. Then act. There's no recipe for everyone. None whatsoever. And you might need a mixture of different recipes to make it work for you. So what I always try to do with my clients, my friends, whenever I have to help someone, and the question was how to help others handle social pressure, is I try to help them know and understand themselves better. I ask them, why are you feeling this way? What are you thinking whenever this is happening? And how is that resulting in the feelings you're having? And why, where does this arise from? Do you have any early memories about this? That kind of talk, so they know and understand themselves better, so then they can act. So I think it's really important that we help people do that introspection that Robert was talking about by giving them a friendly hand. We don't need to be professionals to do that. We are not here to tell everybody what they should do, as Megan was saying, but to help them open their worldview and their minds to exploring what it is that they think, what it is that they tell themselves, what it is that they believe, so they can take control. So that's what I wanted to share with you. We have a few questions from the audience. I hope we have time to answer them. Let me read the first one. The first one says, we're reading more and more about artificial intelligence, AI, and tools like ChatGPT. What influence can it bring to our current understanding of social pressure? Can it help to bring objective or data-driven opinions? ChatGPT says, remember, managing social pressure is a gradual process, and it's important to be patient and kind to yourself along the way. So, who wants to take this on?
I think it's great. I think that, well, first of all, we have to remember that artificial intelligence, at least with the ChatGPT, it's basically just so much information that's being inputted into this robot or artificial intelligence. So it's basically, it's like ChatGPT has been inputted a tremendous amount of information, what it is to be human. So when we ask it a question, it's going to come up with great responses based on all that tremendous amount of input, which I don't think any human is able to even retain in their brain. So I think it's great, but again, we could treat ChatGPT like we would anything externally, and like social pressure. So we would receive information, because I use ChatGPT a lot besides Bing, and I'm all into artificial intelligence, but we have to take it and use it as a tool. It's not the all end all, and it's not, the word of God, if you want to look at it like that. So we want to, basically take that information and also think through it and process it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Megan, you want to add?
Yes, I love ChatGPT, and actually the very last part of what the person wrote is a very standard response from what ChatGPT says for all kinds of different coaching things. But I actually have very clear example of how I think ChatGPT can really help support someone who is susceptible to social pressure. So recently I was using ChatGPT to help guide me through my brand guidelines, my brand messaging. And typically, if you ask ChatGPT to help you with something, it's just going to give you a list of questions that you have to just, I mean, that's basically what you can find on any website. But what I did is I said, ChatGPT, I want you to help me with this, but I only want you to ask me one question at a time. And I want you to change the next answer based on the answer I've given, or the next question based on the answer I've given you. And as a person with ADHD, and I always get overwhelmed with these lists of questions, and I just scan them on all and then go, okay, I'll just need to go make a coffee now because I can't deal with all these questions. And I feel like when it comes to social pressure, I felt like I was able to use it as a coach or a consultant because it asked me one question and I focused on that one question, and I had to do my introspection. I had to think for myself. I was not with another person where I could bounce an idea off of and have my ideas colored or tainted or somehow muddled by somebody else's, their ideas, right? Which are often good ideas. But when I need to get something out of my head, that one question at a time, and then the response was, that's a great idea, Megan. Here's the next question. And it's just so motivating because you're just like, yes, that was a great idea. Thank you very much. And so I think ChatGPT is very helpful for people who are very susceptible to shifting what they want to do based on just chatting with somebody else about the goal that they're working on or the project that they want to work on. ChatGPT is very non-judgmental. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we were talking about before, having somebody help us in a non-judgmental way is also very effective for helping us learn how to deal with social pressure, because part of social pressure is being judged by others. So like both Robert and Megan said, I think ChatGPT and all artificial intelligence will prove invaluable in the nearby future. We have to learn how to handle it properly. Like we have to learn how to handle social pressure. We also have to learn how to handle artificial intelligence. But like anything else in life, we need that learning curve. We need to get into it, use it, and adapt to it as well, like Megan did. Megan said, okay, I want to use this, but I want to use it my way. Again, that self-reflection helped her adapt the tool to her needs. And I think that's a fantastic message to leave this conversation with, because I think that social pressure is very much related to what we just said. We have to do it that way. It's the only way at the end, because if not, everything gets muddled and gets complicated, and it's one step at a time, one question at a time. I want to thank you both, Megan and Robert, for this very, very interesting human conversation. I expected it to be like that, but I really loved it. I enjoyed it very, very much. Is there a last minute or a last message you would like to leave before we close the panel tonight?
Yeah, if you don't know your values, get on top of that. If you can't say them off the top of your head, I think that's the first thing that will help you with social pressure is knowing your values. That would be what I want to leave with.
Thank you, Megan. Robert, anything else?
Yes, what I want to end with is, if you're feeling a social pressure, that's great. That means that you are human. And take that as a sign that you now have to go within and find out what to do next. But you'll find that answer within.
Thank you so much to both of you. Of course, my final message is what I mentioned in my presentation. Remember that every negative pressure can be turned into a positive drive. You just need to ask the right people to help you so you can have the right tools to help yourself with. So I would like to thank both Megan and Robert for their participation tonight. I hope to have them on board again for future editions of Human Conversations. And I would like to remind our audience tonight that our next Human Conversations will be on the 21st of August. And the topic will be, Megan, you might be interested in this one, coaching. What for? So we will also have some interesting guests for that edition of Human Conversations. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to press like it if you liked it. and enjoy your evening. Thank you very much, everybody, and